Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Perception Paradox. My name is Juvila and I'm your host. And today we are diving into a very interesting episode that's related to career, ambition, health. Basically, we could answer the question, what does it take to build a global career at brands like Red Bull and Puma? And what happens when life forces you to rebuild yourself from the inside out? Samuel Barreto grew up shaped by Italian, Portuguese, and Brazilian roots and channeled that energy into over a decade at the heart of some of the world's most iconic experience brands. But his most defining moment had nothing to do with a campaign or a product launched. At 29 years old, in the middle of an ordinary lunch, he had a stroke and woke up facing a 50-50 surgery decision that would change everything forever. In this episode, Samuel opens up about identity, resilience, letting go of the life you knew, and finding your way back, one small win at a time. Let's dive in. Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Jivila, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Samuel, welcome to Perception Paradox. I think that was a great intro about where are you coming from, and you're saying, "Oh, identity is easy," just to define where you're coming from, the roots. And I kind of find that identity is such a complex thing, and especially the sense of belonging nowadays, where the world is so open, and from being very settled back in the days, we kind of are open for any experience, any shift we want in a way, and you're like approaching it as it's simple. That's a great way to look at this. So maybe a good conversation starter would be your background. You've been working for the major brands. I always like to call such brands like Red Bull and Puma experience brands, and lots of people, especially who are active, who are into marketing and all the communication or different fields, they dream about getting into such brands. So, how did that happen for you that you found yourself moving all the way from Brazil to Europe and working for such big brands?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me here, for the invitation. I'm glad that I'm here. I can exchange a little bit about private and also professional life. So thank you very much. Starting from that, and yeah, I was one of those guys that actually had Red Bull as a dream job and Puma, and after that, so my journey, as you mentioned, like my foundation is really marketing. So this is where everything starts. And I always had this creativity element in my life, like very, very young already doing a couple of things, random things. At the moment it was random, but and then after that, after a couple of years, you realize that wasn't that weird. Actually, everything when come together, I have the feeling that what I'm doing now is really coming from those random things that I was doing, like in music and sports, and because when you put all together, you feel that okay, this is really like it's taking me to Red Bull or to Puma or some other ways of seeing life or experiencing culture and all that. Because also I would explore a little bit of the idea of moving from Brazil to Europe and but yeah, so I had that in mind as a growing up, exploring a couple of things, sports, all kind of sports, and then having the opportunity to get into music, playing some instruments, and just that music always being around. So in that moment, I studied marketing, and then at that moment, I decided to go to Europe for the first time for just experience exchange. And I went to Dublin completely out of context. My sister, she was living there, and then it was just a great move and great opportunity to experience something special with her. And during that period, before coming back, I started that was a really important thing and was really like a mental thing. Like I want to go back and try to join a couple of brands, a couple of companies, because I had the experience of working for agents before. Very short one. Like I had my own studio and then another brand experience agents. Very short, but then I went to Dublin, and then after that I was okay. I want to really give it a try and join these big brands. And I was really lucky enough, to be honest. Like I'm not a guy that believes only that it's all about lucky, but of course it's a combination of elements. But I think that moment, the right timing, really was something that I would never expect. So Red Bull was part of the list, of course, because of all the background that I just said. Then when I went back, like was literally the same period that a position was opened, a position that a field event specialist. And it was literally, I got there December, February, I joined Red Bull. So it was just, okay, the right time to be there, to join the team. And then, yeah, the dream actually came true. Like it was just, okay, I'm here, like working with events, working with sports, working with culture. So, of course, mainly around brand experience. We can also talk a little bit more what came after, but that was the starting point, right? So that was 2011, and then just trying to simplify. So I had 13 years at Red Bull, and then in 2018 I had me 2017, end of 2017 I had I was invited to join HQ in Salzburg, Austria, and that was the opportunity. Okay, let's go back to Europe, and this time not anymore like just to experience as a human being, just to enjoy, but also to develop a career. So 2018, January 2018, I moved to Europe. And then I've had a great 6 years, almost something around 6 years in Salzburg, enjoying, yeah, this the first time like working in a global team, so overseeing a lot of countries, getting to know completely different people, cultures. Like this just was just amazing the period that. And then at some point, I wanted to, after 13 years, you start questioning, like, okay, what is next? Like, am I here because I was already part of Red Bull, or I'm actually here because I'm a good professional. So I start looking around, and then got the opportunity to move to Puma in Nuremberg here, where I am now in Germany. And yeah, and it's been 2 years now. Also, a nice journey, learning a lot, like exactly delivering what I was looking for. So that's a good
That's
introduction.
amazing. That's amazing. What a story. So your first years with Red Bull were in Brazil, with
Yes,
covering
yeah,
the Brazilian market, and then you kind of came back and started overseeing the global market.
yes, exactly. So I start in the south of Brazil, and then moved to São Paulo, which is the HQ in Brazil. And then I also spent 3 years there. And then in that moment, it was more national, right? So I was overseeing some things happening in the country, and then moving to global after that. And it was just amazing. Like, it's just so nice to be in this position of exchanging with cultures completely different, like understanding how they work and how you used to work and what makes sense, what is the balance, values, perspectives, way of behaving in a meeting, the way how, that's just the way how they work, and it's so different. And you trying to adapt to your way of working, it's also important. Like it's a great learning curve when you exchange that much with different countries.
Yeah, we speak a lot about this kind of intercultural exchange and working together with different continents. So, what was for you the major surprise and something that you had to get adjusted?
I mean, I think in that case, it's a little bit of empathy, right? Like it's not really about adjusting myself. It's just respecting the way how things are, and the way how the culture. I think my one thing that I can highlight is really coming from Brazil, that you have a more relaxing way of living and approaching life, or even professional, from a professional perspective. I'm not judging in a negative way. It's just the way how the culture is, right? and then you move from that, and of course you have a lot of things. It's a tropical country, so it's warm, so you have that lifestyle because of the influence of the weather, right? So it's a bit of it's clear one of them. I'm not saying that it's all, but yeah, you have other elements that influence that behavior, and then you leave it there and move it to Salzburg, Austria, where it's a little bit more German foundation to the way how they behave and see things. And then that clash, that wasn't that much because also, I used to be X person, not that I changed it to Y. But it was really nice to understand that the school, I like to say school because Red Bull Austria has this school of the way how they, perform and the way how they treat work and, how professional they are. And also because the company, it's a little bit, it's you have a different vibe when you are in a country and then you move to HQ, so it's a little bit more formal, right? So the school of Austrians, the way how they approach work, it's a little bit different, and then adapting myself to that reality was really nice. Like I really have like just good memories of trying to, okay, here it's not the way how I used to approach, let me improve this part here. And it wasn't painful, to be honest. It was just a bit of the exercise, like, okay, now I'm here, how should I approach it, in a way that people will perceive that I'm doing my best to adapt to this new reality. So there is this, I think that is what I would highlight. But of course, you have some small things with countries, like, it's how is, you work with the Americans, but also you work with, in any other Asian country. So it's a little bit different. So how you adapt, how you approach it, how you have the conversations are different. So it's really nice. But this is more small. I think the biggest one is really this Austrian way of working.
Amazing. And how did you manage to adjust with that timing? You're coming with a very versatile background, like Italian, Portuguese, Brazilian.
Yeah,
None of them are known for timing. It's always like two
exactly.
hours later.
Exactly. Yeah. No, definitely not. Definitely not. Like a Brazilian, Italian, Portuguese. But yeah, that's good. A good element adding in this all recipe.
Okay, so you managed kind of to have your plot twist and adjust to the sharp 8:45 whatever meeting agendas.
Eh, exactly. Exactly. Depending on the case, if I'm just around Germans, okay, now I have to bring my German side here. If I'm around, Americans, I can bring a little bit more my Latino side. So can play around this.
I love it. And talking about your such a extensive experience in global brands, how do you see yourself growing in such environments and being part of the ecosystem for so long, your creative side and your data side? Because when you look from outside, first of all those brands look more like everything is just about creativity and storytelling and fun. What I'm seeing behind more from a marketeer perspective, it's a lot of data, risk measurements, and kind of making sure that the brand is not misused and it's aligned with its values and code of ethics, and also lots of work with the athletes as well, so like ambassadorship programs. How was it for you, and how much was it a creative work or there's more like calculated data?
Yes, no, great question. I think you go through different waves, right? So when I start, it was really more into the creative part of the process, just bringing new ideas, bringing it to reality. Of course, you still need to not only have insights, but also how to bring that to life, right? How to execute that. So it's not only about like thinking new ideas. It's is that really feasible, like it's doable? So you have to be, with your feet on the ground and exchange with people with more knowledge and understand from their side, like, does that make sense, is that possible to do? So yeah, you do have this part of bringing just crazy ideas, but also you have to find the balance. But at the beginning, it was more there, like that. My period at Red Bull was really more around this, like and then after that, and also was 2011, right? So information was a little bit different than what we have now, and then right, it's yeah, I'm not that I'm old, but yeah, there is a difference between when I started to now. And then and especially in these companies, these two companies, like being creative is very important. Like it's really bringing insights, like consumer insight, bringing that, helping you to come up with ideas or thinking about, as you said, like, oh, okay, this athlete, he likes X thing. Okay, can we come up with something together with him or her to really make that, create that initiatives that you all know how it is, you know, how it is Red Bull is famous for. So you do have that, but nothing really. It's important to understand that how you bring that to life and if that makes sense to your consumer. And so basically nowadays with more information and research and you understand better your consumer from a different perspective, physical or digital, and how they behave. So that is actually the foundation of how of where you are going to, right? So it's not really only about thinking ideas. It's actually about like if that makes sense. And more with social media, and you know, but I'm thinking more from a marketing perspective as a foundation, as a pillar. It's not only looking specifically about like social media, but all the other moments throughout the consumer journey, right? So so yeah, so this mix is important. Like I would not be, I think, where I am now if I would only be like a creative guy. I would be in a different position or a different company. But as if you understand that it's a combination of all these elements, this yeah, the ecosystem. If you understand that and you are actually open to play around, right? It's also like I don't want to only be the creative guy. I also want to be the marketeer or the guy that will look at the brand as, you know, in a long term vision. Like okay, like this is what we are building now, but in 5 years is really what we want. So that exercise, like really more strategic thinking, was always something that I had, and of course I start appreciating more and more. And I think also it comes with experience, right? Like years, like it's just yeah, you just start following, I guess, the step by step. So you start with a, you know, being very open and you know and bring ideas, but at some point you also start thinking, okay, in the long term, like is that making sense or reshaping ideas? So comes with time and experience, and then at some point also realize that in order to keep growing, you have to play some cards, right? And be a corporation like that, like it's important. And in and to be honest, not in a negative way. It's part of any game in life, right? Like you have to have cards, and you have to understand how to play the game, and you know, and based on your values, based on what you believe, and then making the decisions based on that, not only because you want to please someone, but because you believe as a professional, you know, if that it's really coming from your experience and what you saw in the past, and then how you can offer to the situation, to the new group. And you know, so it's not only about playing cards just for the sake of playing and keep thinking about how you grow in the company. It's really if that makes sense and based on what you believe and you went through. So yeah, so I guess I answered a little bit the question.
Yeah, but talking about the all in general creativity and playing cards, now we've just seen that Zalando, for example, they let go of their, I think, almost the whole creative team. How do you see now the changing as well, like uh, for your work
With
and now,
AI.
yeah, with AI and everything, like when it comes to creativity processes integration and the teams, because yeah, we see. Creative industries going through quite some changes. Not only creative, everyone, but
Yeah, I mean, facing the reality, right? That's it's going to happen, and the approach has to be there. Like, this is going to happen. What else can I do to be a professional or be good enough to keep going and keep improving and go to the next level of as a professional, right? So yeah, we have a couple of things influencing those decisions, right? Sometimes it's not efficient to have internal creative, and it's better to have external. So you outsource there, right? So that is one thing. Another thing, it's really AI. It's optimizing a lot of tools and way of doing things. So makes sense because you take that talent and then from that person and then you invest in something else because that person is still has the his or her values. So that's in terms of how to contribute to the company. So it's not that it's anymore doesn't make sense. It's just let's optimize what we can through AI, and then that person also, and including myself, like is that when I say it, it's not about only designers. It's actually like marketers as well. Like it's still AI is influencing a lot, like the decisions that you have to make, and so yeah, so I see with good eyes. Like I still believe that the way how we understand consumers is really still like in a human. It is a human. There's a human influence there. So it's there is yeah, AI still will help a lot to optimize things and help us to really come up with even better solutions. But it's still the human element that's not can be replaced. So the way how you know I understand the consumer or my feeling is still there. We will get the data from the AI, and which is very helpful. It will help us to even figure even better the way how to approach consumers. But the feeling is still there. That it's the same. I like always to bring that the case like music, like you will see more and more bands or musicians like AI. You go to Spotify, you have a list of. But the truth is, yeah, the music is good, but there is no soul there. So you cannot really go to a concert, for instance. Even though I love that artist, I cannot go to a concert and have this special experience, which is being in a festival or being there with friends, with family, and being looking at that person or the band. So that it's not trying to just bring it to the reality that I just described. So music you can experience in that way, you will still enjoy it, but the experience of the human side we will still be missing. So that's the way how I see also my area, like marketing, creative, and all aspect. That's the same the way how I face. I'm not saying that it's the yeah, everyone really believes in that. But I try to compare both and bring the two realities to, just as an example, the way I believe that we can keep moving. Does it make sense to you?
It does. It does. How do you think, Samuel, your work environment shaped your athletic and musical and creative endeavors? Like when you joined, for example, in Red Bull, later on Puma, do you think it somehow paused, or you actually kept experimenting and exploring and redefining your, I don't know, passions, hobbies, and activities?
Oh, the only thing that I can say in terms of impacting in a negative way is maybe I just didn't have the time that I wanted to play more music or learn more about instruments or doing more sports, because all the rest is it always been so nice to get in touch with people that you get inspired by. Like it's just athletes that they do things that you wish you could do. So you exchange, you learn from them, and you just paying attention the way how they are doing things. That is on the sports side. I'm not close to good in anything I do. I just enjoy, and that's the same. The music, the culture, and it's just seeing them and how creative they are, how good they are. Just consuming that, the way how they see things is just inspiration. Like I think it was more opportunities that I had that I would never have in my life. Than actually any negative side. Like everything influenced it, like in terms of, going through or having opportunity to exchange with musicians. Like, yeah, okay, that's they have so unique ways of seeing things or playing or expressing, and it's just being able to be there and and listen to them is, okay, I want to go home now and keep my heads around it and try my best. Of course, you have a lot of talent and skills there, but yeah, I think that's a bit of yeah, I just feel that everything kind of added and helped me to get more excited about what are things that I love.
Amazing. That sounds very fun. I'm pretty sure like it's very easy also to lose track when you see so many different inspirational stories. And if you're curious, you're like, oh, I want to do this. I want to try that.
Yeah,
And
it happened. Definitely.
well, I hope hopefully you started snowboarding in Austria.
It happened. Actually, I had experience before, and as I grew up skateboarding, surfing, and core boards, and was just natural thing. Like, okay, let me give it a try snowboarding as well. So it was in Ushuaia in the south of the continent with the friends, and then one of the things that was a highlight to me when I got the invitation to move to Salzburg was, okay, I will just be living 30 minutes away from a really good mountain. So yeah, it was amazing. It was the ocean that I was missing. Actually, I was finding in the mountains. So can't complain. Like weekends, during winters weekends were always about like snowboarding.
That sounds fun. Well, I'm the ocean girl. Like I can like this for the season. Yes, mountains are great. I was like, I need the ocean, but I didn't grow up by the
Yeah,
ocean, so it's kind of again very different.
exactly.
So
Exactly periods. Yeah.
amazing. All right. So we connected with you on LinkedIn a couple of weeks back, and I saw the post being shared by a good friend of mine, Arshan, who attended the same event. You think he was emceeing at Savant event. And what struck me, it was this, first of all, like he was mentioning the title, The Book of Letting Go, and a very personal story that you shared. And that reflects, I would say, a very powerful story and learning of something that didn't go as planned with your health, but also kind of redefined and brought you quite some life lessons when it comes to identity, how do we perceive the environment, etc. So I thought would be very valuable and interesting if we can jump and transition a bit into this conversation, because also very powerful what you shared about your different sides also of the identity, where your roots are coming from, like Italy, Portugal, then you're growing up in Brazil, and then everything around you it's about like international athlete, musician, etc. And then you mentioned that unfortunately you had the kind of a strong life reminder, and lots of things has changed for you and kind of flipped around. Do you remember like
Yes.
this moment, and how do you come back to this moment right now? It's been quite a long time ago.
Yes. So during this, let's say 15 years almost now, since I started in this corp environment, I had around 2014, I had a stroke, brain stroke. Wasn't expecting. I was 29 years old. Never really checked my brain before that. I think we usually don't do that. But it was, yeah. But I mean, in my case, really never thought. I didn't have anything in family that could be, a potential thing. Not even really heart disease, and it was always super active, like as I said, like sports, not really into drugs, like going to nutritionists, like taking care of my diet. But then in a very ordinary day, like I went to work, not nothing special happening in terms of stress and anything. And then that morning was a normal morning, and then we had a lunch together. I was celebrating a friend's birthday, and then during the lunch, I just felt that what happened was literally like at the very end, my left arm. So I look at my left arm. So kind of things started like I kind of got lost in a moment. I couldn't really think it was what was happening because I never felt that. And then my left arm, I remember seeing my left arm like just frame by frame. Like I use the film Matrix as an example, that you have those scenes that is everything very slow and frame by frame. that's the first thing that I remember when everything happened. So seeing my arm moving that way, then not try, not finding answers, just that fraction of time that okay, what is that? Like what I'm feeling here, it's not really clear now, and it's never felt something like that. So the funny thing is, I didn't say anything to any friend because I was still like normal, even though I wasn't there anymore, but I was still like normal behaving, and I was trying my way to figure out what was happening. And then so I remember three moments. So I remember that moment. I remember me going to the checkout and finding a way to pay the bill. That was really funny. Like password, like I really found a way to pay it. And then the third moment was crossing the street. It was a very calm street. So I remember just checking cars and then crossing the street. And after that, I don't remember anything. And then still after that was going to the car, getting in, and then I wasn't driving. The funny thing is I was always driving that day specifically, and then is the universe showing something. That day specifically I wasn't driving, and I don't remember anything. I don't remember going to the car. I don't remember anything else. But that was my first surgery, so that I had, and then I just woke up in the hospital, and that was the moment that I got information. So the doctor came into the room and he said, "Hey Samuel, nice to meet you. Just you were here just to inform you that you had a stroke in your left side in the back." And then now you're doing all the exams. We are still exploring, still trying to figure out what happened and exactly the region. So that was 2014 July. Imagine that was the year of World Cup, so it was in the middle of the World Cup as well. So it's funny because it was a very special moment for the country. People were celebrating. Like I remember going to, fan zone with my partner and with friends. So it was very a celebrating moment in the country, and then for all of us, like we will face it soon in 1 month. Even though you can be into football or not, you still get the vibe, right? Like a positive environment. And so that was early July, and when that happened for me, of course, me speaking here, I spoke so many times about that, and sometimes in the small groups, people just reaching out, like just one-on-one. Sometimes just people very curious to know about what happened, and then you feel good in sharing and trying to encourage people to see in different ways. But and then, of course, at that moment, I was crying as like a baby. Like it's information that at the age of 29 you would never expect. Late 20s, you got a stroke, and then the doctor said, "Hey, you had this stroke. Now we are checking a couple of things." And then he left, and then after that, of course, family, and couldn't have many visits, but it was mainly family and my partner. So it was basically that. And then the doctor came after saying, "Okay, we have two options to you. We just checking everything." After a couple of exams, right? So late that day, so afternoon, he came back and he said, "So we have two situations here. One is that we have to actually make a decision together here." So of course, my family was not there at the moment; it was only with me. So for information, so the doctor saying, so we have two options. One is we leave as it is now. We let just I was with the tool, right, removing the blood. We just remove that, let the blood, drain the blood, and then we keep as it is. Or the option B was we go into surgery and then we remove that part. And then, of course, I was like, wow, okay, we have two options and two very different options, right? Even though, anyway, the goal was the same, but one was yeah, like it's just waiting for something, which is something that he mentioned. Like we cannot guarantee that we will never have that again. You can eventually have. The other one is okay. Like I'm going to the situation where I will lose completely the control of that situation. So everything will be on the doctor side. So he will be responsible for things. On this side, so if you data on the left here, so keeping as it is, I would be leaving like a bomb because it could eventually happen. On the other side, making the decision of going to a surgery, because of the region where happening, the region is connected with the language and the speech, right? So your ability of speaking, and also the movement of your right arm. So it's always reflecting, right? From the left to, it's all about your right, and the opposite as well. So that was actually thing that he said, like, if you decide to go into surgery, there is the risk, and that is the risk. It's 50-50, because it's a brain, right? So it's something that it's just so special, let's put it that way, that it can actually go to any direction. And then he left, and he said, and that, hey, I will give you this night, have a conversation with your family, have a conversation with your partner, and then next morning we will speak about that. And then he left the room, and I was just, as I said, I was just crying. Like, it's funny to go through the story and be very brave and say that everything happened, but in the end, actually, you're a very sad situation which will impact the rest of your life, right? Like, either way. And then in the meantime, my parents, they were checking. Of course, because of the ambulance, I went straight to the public hospital, but I could actually eventually go to a private hospital. You keep that in mind, that maybe there you will be, get better doctors or things like that. So my parents, in the meantime, they were checking and trying to get information about the doctor, about, whatever they could do, like to just provide me, better solution. But it actually, in the end, I was with a very good, well-known doctor. The guy was really like a well-experienced, a very old person, like, went through a lot for sure. And then they came back to me like saying that. And the funny thing, like, they didn't want to say a word about the decision. Like, they were very clear that it's up to you. Like, it's on you to really decide if you want to go into surgery or not. Because in the end, it's your decision, it's your life. And I'm very glad to have that, or to go through something like this, because today, whatever happens to me, or whatever happened to me in between, like since 14 to now, I know the decision was mine. That was me actually deciding that this is what I want, which sometimes cannot be, right? Sometimes, like, it's just someone trying to solve it, to solve the problem for you, but and then you kind of have this accountability, like, that was me. So I'm very glad that decision, even though probably they didn't think in that way, but that's the way how I read nowadays. So what happened? So I decided to take, to go into surgery, and happy that anything happened. Right after the morning after, I woke up with still speaking, with a movement of my right arm. So just felt okay. Everything went well, and next step. But the truth is, like, during the period, you have three questions, right? So the first one is usually, why me, right? Like, when you get this information, when you have a stroke, you start questioning, why me, why me? That's a very natural thing whenever, whatever happens in life, right? And then you have the second one, which is, what now, right? So what now, it's the decision that I made between both that I had. And then the third one is, what next, right? What is next? And then the what is next is something that you can, you can really not, even you can have a roadmap, or just have a very clear path, but you don't really have any control, right? So when I had the surgery, it was just the starting point, it wasn't actually the finishing line. Like, that was literally when I left, I thought, like, I remember the doctor say, hey, from now on, you probably will have some seizures here and there. So that's why you need to take this medication here. And I remember saying to him, no, I will take this every day. I won't have any, trust me. Yeah, little I knew that actually it was completely out of my control, that one. So that's the reason why I say like that is wasn't actually the finishing line, it was actually just the starting point of a completely new journey of my life. The funny thing is, the meantime, like everything that I'm saying here, I was still working. Of course, I was away for between 3, 4, 5 months. Well appreciated by the company. A really nice way of treating the situation. So so that moment, so that it was when everything changed, right? So my life was over, like the life that I knew was over. From that moment towards would be a completely new Samuel, and that's pretty much what happened. And then since then, I do have, of course, managed. The very beginning, like the first 3 years, was a roller coaster. Like was just everything was happening at the same time. Like I was having many seizures, like every 10, 15 days I was having seizures. And then trying to find the medications, like how many pills you take per day. Like you take a lot or you go down, and if you go down, like you have more seizures. If you go up, like you get very you get away, like it's just too many. Nowadays I still take 10, 11 pills per day. So I'm right now I already took like 4 or 5. So that's big, it's still like this is one of the elements that you have to take into account. Like, okay, this is now part of my life. So the life that I was used to, never really took medicines or pills during the day. Like now I have to take 10, 11. So yeah, so then the first 3, 4 years, it was just a roller coaster. Like was dad, was having the series, was going to work, was having series around my team, in the middle of meetings, having presentations, after the presentation, having it. It was, it's just a lot happening at the same time. And then relationship wise, also it impacts, right? Because you don't, at least that's my story, right? Like I always like to clarify that what happened to me and the way how I navigated and I'm still navigating the situation. um, so at that moment, I didn't know that I was depressed. Like I was just, believing that, yeah, I will keep doing my stuff here, even though it's happening. So I never really realized that I was very down and it wasn't really dealing, like, for instance, with my partner in the way how I should. Simply because you don't realize it. It's just is for me it wasn't that I was maybe I'm depressed and I should think about it. I should visit some doctors, blah blah blah. It wasn't really part of. I was just thinking about like medications and doctor and how can I get out of this cycle of having seizures and all that. So yeah, so that was 3 years of a lot of things happening, but at the same time, 3 years of learning. And then I think I can now start bringing back what I said, but the way how I approach life, or which is a bit of my identity as well, or family, coming from, education of my family and the way how they also taught me in terms of life and the way of living. As you mentioned, like coming from an Italian family, Portuguese family, growing up in Brazil, all these elements, like you approach life in a different way. I'm not saying that it was easy, but that it's, of course, like it maybe was one of the elements. But I remember one specific moment that not, it wasn't a Eureka moment, that thing, but I remember that it was very strong to me that after a couple of I don't remember exactly in between. Like it was probably like my second and third year in that situation. I remember my partner approaching me saying, "Hey, listen, don't get me wrong. Not exactly those words, but don't get me wrong. But I'm kind of sick of this situation where people are just approaching me to ask how you are and actually not asking how I am. And the truth is, she was going through pretty much everything as I was going through. Like, she was going to the hospital, she was seeing me, having those seizures, and she was pretty much the person that was with me all the time, like going from her work to my office, and then from there to the to the hospital. And this is just one thing, right, to mention. And that was one of the main moments that I realized, okay, Samuel, that's stop to feel good when people feel sorry about you, because there is a addiction here, right? Because it's really like a 360, and I would say like a cycle. So you feel bad, or maybe you're feeling better, and then you go and you have a surgery. The surgery, you get some I'm sorry from people, right? So people feel sorry about the situation. That situation kind of creates a rewards in your brain that release dopamine, and this dopamine makes you feel better. But the problem was I was once again better. The problem I was having so often that I was always going back to the first step. So I was never really ending that process. And at some point I just started realizing, like, yeah, man, like, you've been doing your best in everything, like work wise, like trying to perform, like since when you start, or trying to get better as a person, and blah blah blah. And then at some point you're just kind of giving up, like you're just waiting to people to feel sorry about it. And this actually impacting your also relationship and the relationship with family as well. So change your mind, change your mindset, change the way how you're approaching. And that was around this time was when I started to realize that, okay, what can I do to change it? And I started, visiting some different doctors. I started reading a little bit more about it. I started watching more, interviews, or trying to understand people's story, how they went through it. So a few things that combined kind of helped me. I think that the one that is, even though once again it's about work, but the determination of I want to prove myself that I can be the same guy that is used to deliver. I want to be the same guy now, even though I went through the situation. I think that also was a very strong element in my my process to overcome the situation. So yeah, that's a bit of the introduction, maybe, of where I'm coming from during this period of time. Like, even though in the meantime I was working, and just to clarify, everything around was still happening.
That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing, first of all, Samuel. I think it's very courageous that you show up and you actually share the story, because not everyone has the courage or think that it's relevant. And I feel like such stories both reminds us, teaches us, and also resonates perhaps with someone who is going through difficult times. And talking about, you mentioned the victim a bit mentality, right? Even last week when we had a call, we were discussing this kind of a bit of a dopamine effect, and also that it's very easy to lose hope and get into this kind of environment where you just wait for people to lift you up. How did you manage to not fall into that trap, and how long did it take you to fully actually let go and redefine your identity? Because as someone, I'm coming from the sports background as well, and I had some situations and challenges in life where one day I could not do any sports and that was such a big part of me. Um, and it's not easy to rebound.
Yeah, um, that was tough. Yeah, indeed, it was tough. Like, I can give an example that also was it's one of the highlights of my process was, so I grew up playing music, and I grew up playing instruments, and always singing along and playing along music. And I remember when I was in my very first 6 months, or even a year, I was not able anymore to play along music, because just my coordination just wasn't there anymore. Like, it's just a side effect of the medication. Also, of course, the stroke. So that was one of, if I before I mentioned about the career, that was another one. no man, I need to, get better. Like this is my passion. Like it's really like music in general, and playing is something that really, it's my therapy, to be honest. In that situation, I also understood very well that this was very important to, after work, I always go back to home and play at least for 30 minutes because of the therapy, and also because I wanted to make sure that I was able again to play and feel that I'm, playing well at least. So yeah, so that was one of the chapters, right? So the hope you, as I said before, like it's kind of natural that you start thinking and questioning yourself. Like it's just you're not the same anymore. So that's clear, like, and you have to face it, and learn and accept it. Learn from that. So once again, like if I wasn't able anymore to play, I have to learn again. So that is the learning process of that specific thing that I used to do. If I'm not anymore allowed to surf because I can have surgery inside, so I cannot surf anymore, okay, accept it, because you cannot change. Like it is something that is, it always, it's, that's funny because whenever you are in a situation, depending on what happens, you always bring back the why me, right? Oh fuck, I cannot surf anymore. Something that it's such a special, this is such a special moment. Not about how good you are. It's about, going out there, having time with your friends and exchange with the ocean, all the process. That is actually what is special for me in terms of surfing. I wasn't able anymore. But okay, accept it, because you cannot change anymore. Like it's something that happened and you cannot change anymore. And then it is just more the exercise of bring it back again. What is next? What you can identify as a solution to not being able to surfing? Is there any other thing that can potentially help you also to get better, to feel more confident? That because there are a lot of situations that you lack a lot of confidence, right? In many different scenarios. And then I kind of found, I started experimenting and once again, learning new things. And tennis came as a solution for me. So also helped me to okay, I want to become, I always try to treat myself as a professional athlete. I'm not far from it, but okay, try to be it now. I learned a little bit too late, let's say. But anyway, like let's try to be the best you can be in terms of tennis player. Like so, I start seeing that as my learning process when it comes to sport. Right? Of course, I kept doing some sports, and as we mentioned, like snowboarding, because wasn't that danger. Even though it's still the brain, it's still right your head, but always taking care. So you start finding or trying to find things that would bring you the confidence as again, or help you to accept the situation and bring back the hope. Because in the end, it's a matter of, it's an exercise of just do your best to accept it. Like it's not changing. Like you change it, and it's just accept it and do your best based on what you are now, to really keep growing, keep and aiming to become a better and better person every day. So not sure if I'm answering exactly, or I'm just kind of giving the whole context. But yeah, that was a big moment. And just to also give you a clarity in terms of process. Also, in the middle of that, you need to, and that was me, like understanding that the brain needs time to heal as well. So there is a physical, not only a mental side. Also, the brain. It was very clear that the first 3, 4 years was literally just was a roller coaster, but it wasn't only mentally but also physically, right? Like the brain was still trying to connect the dots that before, if I used to play guitar in a way, that is not anymore possible, the brain needed time to really find the new dots to deliver the same outcome, right? So this was one thing that started happening. And then I realized that also my brain would need time. Not it wasn't only me and with my situation, mental situation, but also the brain. And it was clear, like at some point, like from 15 days or 10 days cycle to 1 month to 3 months. So it was really the time showing to me like, okay, it will eventually get better and better. And then around, I guess I would say like 19, 20, like was the first time that it took me 8 months to have surgery. So that was a big achievement at that moment. And then my last one was 2021 or 2020. Yeah, now I don't remember the car, but it was 2021. So I spent like 6 years without having any crisis anymore. And then just brings back to the brain needed some time to heal. Um, Unfortunately, a month ago, I have another one. I had another one for the first time in 6 years, but I also was a I was and it still is because still I am here now in a very stressful moment because of the work related topics. And then it's a good reminder of hey, Samuel, you went through all this, and the stress and overthinking, it's a trigger to you. So stop doing that. Like, look at that, after 6 years we had again without a clear reason of besides the stress. So that was when I also was a really good reminder, and I stopped. And the funny thing that I had the keynote at Savant event, and was also really good have the feeling of sharing that and just feeling that, okay, man, let's change it again. Go back to the guy that was dealing well in the last 6 years. So yeah.
Interesting. I mean, stress is such a powerful weapon against us and humanity. And with all the constant pace and demand and expectations, it's not getting there. There's a very interesting book written by John Sarna. It's not the body keeps you a score, but it's about mind body connection. And it's related to healing your back pain. So Dr. John Sarna was one of the first doctors in the US back in the days that was highlighting that our emotions really affect our pain in the body, and especially the back pain. And based on the different stress levels, like it's kind of yeah, we should be aware of that, and not everyone needs a surgery. That's just an example how impactful stress can be on us. How do you cope with stress? How do you actually navigate right now the stress? Do you have some
It is
tools
a
or
great
some
question.
habits that got integrated into your lifestyle?
Yeah, it is a great question. So you have two things: the stress and the anxiety, right? Of course, they are related, they are connected, but the way how I found to deal with both. So the stress, I really at some point I realized that everything, at least most of the things in my life that I was getting stressed, was related to work. And you start rethinking about the battles, the discussions you want to have, the value that you believe that is the most important thing in your life. So you start changing the way how you see it, and without losing actually the professionalism. Like, you still want to deliver, it was still based on what you want for yourself. Like, you still want to perform, but I change a bit my approach when it comes to work and that stress coming from work. Of course, we have other elements in life that also helps to get stressed, but wasn't that bad as was work for me. And when I say that, I can give an example, like moving from Brazil to Austria. There is a stress, connected with that. Like, you getting out of your comfort zone, you're going to new things. So of course the downside is the stress, but the positive side here is the experience that you are getting, right? The other thing, so I think the stress kind of managed, but the other thing, the anxiety, I won't lie to you that it's still tough for me. I'm not. I tried. I never really got into meditation. I think I have some elements that I'm adding here and there. So as I said, like music helps me, playing helps me, or listening music. Um, yeah, some diet here a little bit also helps. Understanding my time to go to bed and respecting the time that is spent sleeping, which is something that it's the the main problem when you have epilepsy, which is my case. If you have a situation that you don't sleep well, it's clearly that's really interesting part. Like if I sleep only 4 or 5 hours, the next morning I will not be, yeah, I mean, in a very like weird situation, but the next morning for sure I will not able to organize thoughts and even communicate, and especially speaking English, which is my case. It's just it is not coming together. That's really a really funny thing. Like so, when you start understanding that, so going to bed and respecting the time when you're sleeping, or finding some things that brings you joy, and calm down a little bit, like then there's that's not, try to give a very simple example. If you have a meeting at 10, get there at 9:45, because I'm always the guy that get anxious to be late. Okay, learn about how to deal with that, and then do your best to avoid that. So very small things that when you combine helps. But things such as, yeah, meditation, I never really found, or Pilates wasn't a thing for me. Never really got into like meditation, but sports always been also part of this this elements of overcoming epilepsy.
Thanks for sharing. Actually, anxiety is such a also like stress. Like stress is one thing, and anxiety is even I think even more worse because it's under our brain, and if we don't find the reason where is that coming from, or if we don't catch it, it just keeps reminding about itself. And I think it's a very very big time problem nowadays, and especially with younger generations where everything is always a
Exactly.
stimulus response. It's like it is so so wild. Talking about meditation, it's very interesting because like it can be just walking without any input, and that's already it is walking meditation in a way, in the forest or in the street, whatever resonates most for you. We're very much getting closer to the end and running out of time,
Oh,
and I'd like
sorry.
to say this. It's all right, but I have a couple of more questions if it's all right with you. Are you still okay for five
Yes.
minutes? Okay, great. So Samuel, if you could go back before the stroke, your life, your mindset, so what would you tell to younger self that she should do different?
It's always a good question, right? Be positive. Whenever or regardless what happens to you, like just be positive. There is no why me. There is just it meant to be, and learn from that. That's it.
I wish it was so easy as it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially like
I
you have two types of people, like some of them are positive more to like drawn more to the positive side, but lots of people are very affected by the environment, and then we're like they're going for like more like this negative aspect. Do you have some kind of tools how to shift your brain? For example, I've heard people do like fake it till you make it. Some people write it down. Some people try to write all the best things that can happen, avoiding the negative side. What works for you?
Yeah, for me, and once again, like I think it's my story, right? So it doesn't mean that will help other people, but music for me always was always a way to get in a mood, in a positive mood, right? So playing it as I played, so it really helped me to connect more and more. So for me, that was one of the elements of being positive. But I think my family and the people surrounding me was also a good element, and was helping me to still be positive. Like my mom was always the one like supporting a lot. My dad is a very easygoing guy as well. My siblings as well. So my partner as well. Like you know, if you have those people around you, like for sure helps you to keep the positive side of the situation, right? But I think also brings back to where I'm from, and you know, this of course, like it is a Brazilian thing, right? Like the country itself, like you struggle a lot with a lot of things, but we still find ways to be one of sorry for that for saying that, but one of the best people in the world, like a very always very welcoming, like you're always doing the best, you enjoy life. So I think there is also the cultural aspect in that.
100%, 100%. I don't think there are better dancers than Latinos. And in general, the vibe. It's not like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
love it. What would you say? How did your values and life priorities shifted?
amazing question. I didn't that's I think I was very lucky to have the parents that I have with such strong values and clear directions. So I didn't change as a person from that perspective. Um, I still, of course, I believe that I improve it as you know, in the way of seeing life, and I'm still improving. I'm still getting a better person every day. But what changed it, and this is for sure, is the way how I was perceiving professional life. So for me, you know, I think our generation in general, like millennials, we have this pressure of, you know, delivering, and that's funny because we went to the crisis in 2008, went through it, and then we have AI. So we, you know, our journey, like trying to prove ourselves, like it's different than others. Of course, all the generations that have their own struggles and situations, but that was something I was, you know, for me, like professional, I always had that in mind, like never really coming from my parents, but okay, I want to deliver it. I want to, and that changed it. Like I had, yeah, this is just really like a fraction of your life, somehow. Like don't don't go crazy. That I think that really changed it. My values, like what matters to me, like the way how I approach, the way how I go to a meeting. Like okay, I go to a meeting that I have no idea what is happening with the person on the other side of the table. So I should not just perceive or treat that person based on what I'm seeing out. So don't judge the book by its cover, right? So that was something that really changed a lot to me. Like I stopped trying to be the best. I stopped trying to. That I wasn't. Yeah, that it is not the case anymore.
All right. I always like to say choose your battles. You don't have to be the
Exactly.
best everywhere, right? All right. So, what are you still letting go of?
Um, well, so many things. Well, yeah, I don't. I think that I leave open that answer. So many things. Yeah.
We will leave it open for next
Yes.
time. So, a final thought.
For the next
So,
time.
to everyone who is listening today, what would be your thought to ponder for them? What would like to, the question maybe they can take out of this conversation or something to rethink?
Yeah. I think we all have our own challenge, like different chapters. We will face a lot of peaks and valleys throughout our lives, but we have to think that most of them there will be only fractions of your life. That you should not overthink them. You have to address them, but one thing is address, another thing is overthinking. Overthinking becomes suffering. So you're not anymore finding solutions, you're just suffering more and more. So if you understand that you have those challenges, you have those peaks and valleys, and of course we all have different stories. If you understand that, I truly believe that helps. And once again, like it helped me a lot to go through my journey and get to a moment where I feel that I overcame the situation. So if you face in that way, yeah, trying to be as positive as possible in anything you do, because I think it will pay off in the end. So yeah, I think it's a combination, but I would say that like just understand that you have your challenge, you have your chapters, understand that people around you also have, and just be positive all the time, you with yourself and also with the people around you.
Amazing. Samuel, thank you so much for joining Perception Paradox. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope everyone who were with us today also enjoyed, got inspired, learned what does it take to get into those global brands. And yeah, thank everyone who were here with us today, and see you next week. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you.
Yay! I am pausing. Stop.